Okay, so anyway, standard form is when X and Y are together on one side of the equal sign. So we have seen our equations in this form down here, the slope intercept, the y equals mx plus b. But now we're going to take a look at it when it's in standard form. So X and Y are together on that left side of the equal sign. So to find the x-intercept, what we're going to do is we are going to plug 0 in for y. So a lot of times people think, oh, x-intercept, I plug 0 in for x. No, you're plugging 0 in for the other letter because you want to find out what is your x. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that equation, x minus 2y equals 4, and I'm going to rewrite it with now a 0 in place of my y. So if I plug a 0 in for my y value, anything times 0 is 0. So that whole 2 minus or negative 2 times 0 is nothing. So we are left with x equals 4. So our x-intercept is going to be at 4. So you are replacing your other letter with a 0. So if we want to find the x-intercept, the x needs to be left over. What this means, and we will do graphing next unit, is if we were to graph this, we would know that at 4 on the x-axis, we would have a point right there. So remember, the x-intercept is where you are crossing the x-axis. So we're plugging 0 in to find y. All right, not bad. Y-intercept is now the opposite. We are now going to plug 0 in for x. So y-intercept, we're going to plug 0 in for x. So it's the same equation. So instead of x minus 2y equals 4, we'll do 0 minus 2y equals 4. So again, if you want to find the y-intercept, the y needs to be left over. So you're plugging 0 in for the other letter. All right, 0 minus 2y equals 4 is just saying negative 2y equals 4. How do we get y by itself? Going back to basics here. Nate? Careful. Yep, divide by negative 2. All right, so our y-intercept is going to be negative 2. So what that would mean if we would graph it, like I said, we're going to be doing next unit, is on the y-axis at negative 2, we would have our point, and then we can connect them and make our line. So this is what we're leading up to when we talk about x and y intercepts. So we're just looking at it algebraically at this point, but it's going to lead into graphing later on. So again, it's not a tough topic. It's all about plugging 0 in for the other letter. So if it says find x-intercept, you want x to be left behind. X equals whatever. And your x and y intercepts can equal 0, by the way. So don't think that you made a mistake. Okay, so let's take a look at number 2. Again, standard form, so same idea as number 1. So x-intercept, I am replacing my y value with a 0. So x-intercept, I want my x to be still in the problem. Now, for some of these, it is not too difficult. I like to show every single step of my process. So if you're like, oh, I know anything times 0 is 0, and that 6 times 0 is just going to disappear, you could bypass that step if you wanted and just go right to 3x equals 24. Because anything times 0 is 0. All right. So Rachel, what is our x-intercept? Sorry. I put you on the spot there. My bad. Sorry. If you have 3x equals 24. 8. Sorry, I'm sorry. No, well, you were writing stuff down. I thought maybe you were doing, because honesty is the best policy. I thought maybe you were figuring it out. All right, so x-intercept is 8. So again, if we were to graph it on the x-axis, you would go over to 8 and you would plot your point. All right, and then the other part of this, the y-intercept. So now we want to plug 0 in for x. So instead of 3x, I'm going to have 3 times 0, which would just be nothing, plus 6y equals 24. So y-intercept, notice that our y is still in the problem. So that 3 and 0 is gone. Nate? Yep, y equals 4, because we'll divide both sides by 6. Good. All right. So in the IXL, it's going to be these types of problems. They're going to ask for one piece. So you got to make sure you read it. Because a lot of times people don't read and they just assume it's one over the other. And you can have fraction answers, by the way. So if you get a fraction, that does not mean it's wrong. All right, so the last two are in slope intercept form, which we are very much accustomed to. Y equals, whatever x plus or minus whatever. So to find the x-intercept, it's the same process. You're going to replace y with 0. So I'm going to take 0 equals 5x minus 2, and we're going to solve. So again, x-intercept, x is left behind. So this is going back to solving equations, two-step equations, which hopefully we remember. What would be our first step? Anthony. Say it one more time. I can hear you. Divide by 5 would be after the first step. Add 2. Yes, we're going to add 2 first. So we'll have 2 equals 5x. And then to get x by itself, we'll divide by 5. And it will be a fraction, and that's okay. And I would actually just leave it as a fraction. I know the IXL, it says to leave it as a fraction. So if you would change it to a decimal, even though it might be the right one, it's going to say it's wrong. So I just keep it as a fraction. So 2/5 would be our x-intercept. Again, you can always check your work, especially since you have your calculator. If you take 2/5 times 5 and take 2 away, you should get 0. So you can always double check to make sure that that works out. So same process, x-intercept plug 0 in for y. Now, the y-intercept is very easy. You are looking at the problem and identifying where the y-intercept is located. So in this problem, y equals 5x minus 2, which number is in the y-intercept spot? Wally? Oh, I thought you were doing the, changed it to a next graph. Nate? Yeah, it's -2. Is that number there at the end? So for y-intercept, when you're in slope-intercept form, you can just write the answer. Now, if you forget, so let's say you're on the test and you're like, oh, shoot, I forget, do the same process. Plug 0 in for x, and you would still get the same answer. Or you can just look to see what number is in that spot, and it's going to be that -2. Okay, all right, last one, number 4. Let's start with the y-intercept first. So looking at our equation, y equals 1/2 x plus 6. What is our y-intercept? Waldy? 6, yeah. That thing right there, y equals 6, perfect. All right, so now x-intercept, we are going to replace our y with a 0. And we are going to now solve for x. So notice it says x-intercept, x is still in the problem. Which should we do first? Nate? Yep. Perfect. Okay, yeah. What's next? Yeah, I was talking to you, sorry. Divide by a half, good. You could also multiply by 2, that's the same thing. So divide by half or multiply by 2 is doing the same thing. I'm just gonna rate it as multiplying by 2. So what do you get, Ty? I swear you had your hand up like a second ago. Oh, okay, all right. Yes, -12. Thank you, Nate. Okay, so to check, if you plug -12 back in for x, your y value should be 0. So if you take -12 times a half, that's -6. -6 plus 6 is 0. So x and y intercepts, the one number is a 0 and the other number is going to be whatever it is. You are replacing it for the other letter. All right. I'm going to stop recording.